It's strange, the whole ensnarement thing. Much like the saying goes for raising a child. That saying, it takes a village. Yeah, it takes a village to keep a narcissist going too, but not just that. It takes a village to keep an ensnarement racket going too. Figuratively speaking, of course. What I'm referring to in a village in this sense is one's experience of their community, in part. And their community could be family, or just a member that they're exposed to regularly. It's one of the things that's so bizarre about what narcissists are capable of doing and what they do and why they are so uniquely dangerous. You're coming out of an ensnarement. It's not unlike the Truman Show in a sense. I don't mean in the sense that everybody's watching you. You might have a few screwballs doing this, and you may have identified them. If so, that's relatable. With the track record to prove it and all that. But it's like the Truman Show in that that something is. You're in this false reality. You're in the narcissist reality. This is part of how ensnarement works. It's part of them breaking you down over time and invalidating your own psychobiology. So your senses, everything about you gets replaced by their shit. This is part of what makes you subordinate in their artificial and convoluted little fucking game where they play king of the hill in their own comprehensive and unique circle of hell. It's just fucking bananas, but it's not. It's more than that. The term is used in so many different ways. It's used clinically, too. When people talk about this stuff, the term in those settings, therapeutically, is an emotional vampire. What are we really talking about here? There's any number of explanations for it. How it's a byproduct of your system being systematically blocked and usurped and turned against itself, and one can call it uncanny valley, whatever the case may be, but I had somewhat of a mentor some years ago when it came to unconventional perceptions, and he said to me, even if it is fantasy, if it's affecting you, it might be worth paying attention to. Perhaps even on its own terms, to some degree or another. The idea being, perhaps it's a way to find some conclusive resolution to it, because it's a part of the unconscious trying to tell you something. If anybody's seen any of my other videos, they might recall that I tend to refer to the unconscious as a quantum supercomputer, and there's damn good reason for it. It's an embarrassment of evidence to back it up, too, by the way, for those who may not know. That's not the only quantum supercomputer, because then we've got the collective unconscious. That's something else entirely. Phenomenal stuff, and what do you know? Turns out to be interfaces for all this stuff. One thing I've found narcissistic people to have is this unusual environmental overlay in this way. It's something I picked up on in so many ways throughout my life, with different types like this. And at first, we're conditioned to not pay attention to these mysterious things on the periphery of awareness. So at first, it was what was most noticeable: anxiety, pains, inflammation, tension, headaches. The longer the exposure, the more extreme. But the problem is conventional wisdom would have us believe, those of us who are the more problem-solving type, that the solutions are found within, and I would agree in part. But as if that this is something that can just be overcome and overridden, because it's 100% due to your interpretation of what's happening. I'm sorry to say it doesn't work like that. If your skin is getting lacerated by a blade, is that just because of your body's interpretation of the lacerations? Is it because that's what fucking happens when you get cut with a knife? It's the same damn thing with psychobiology and interpersonal reactions. We are built to impact and affect one another significantly. When these systems are not being co-opted for uniquely despicable and convoluted machinations and aims, well, my goodness, the results are pretty spectacular. But when these systems are being exploited, well, then you've got something else going altogether. When it comes to these environmental overlays, you can experience them as imagery. And I don't mean hallucinations or anything like that. I'm talking about things that, well, they say it's subtle, and in a way it is, but after a while it's not, especially if you're developing it. It could be, it's like perceiving things with a version of sonar, some kind of sonar. There's a number of things that are involved in it. And the more one is healed and developed in these ways, the better. And the more discerning you can become, too, because you're utilizing all of these, all of your internal gadgetry, including discernment and reasoning, and any number of lenses for interpreting reality, which is a pretty wild and multifaceted thing in and of itself. But to avoid getting too abstract with that, sticking with what we're talking about here, environmental overlays. I have not experienced this in the same way when it comes to healthy people. No. Something else entirely. It's more like a sun, a small sun or something like that. That's not quite right. But it's nourishing. And, if you tend to be like this as well, what do you know? It's mutual. Thank goodness for that. With the narcissist, or a narcissistic person, it's very disorienting. It can feel on some subtle level as if being led into some kind of labyrinthian confusion, pulling without reciprocating, like a circuit that is not connecting. And this is the way that I've come to see relationships where that function as more designed. It's like a circuit that connects, and then the circuit flows back and forth. Especially when in close proximity. And then, we can part ways and do whatever, and any other number of things, and then come back together, and it's the same kind of circuit thing. But there's some version of that circuit always going. But it's so much different than a narcissistic entanglement. And when it comes to their overlays, this is also what's very interesting. When it comes to narcissistic people Projective identification is a big thing, and this is them with, they take the disavowed aspects of self thing to a whole other level, essentially projecting themselves, their own really messed up internal parts and gadgetry outside of themselves. And it seems, in the way I've perceived it, to create this bizarre, not good environmental overlay, which is profoundly consuming. And they've looked different in any number of ways, but it's usually similar kind of imagery of morbid things, some versions of them. What I've noticed here is this person's unconscious and his environmental overlay, if we'll call it that. It's not unlike this. Looks a lot like the game The Last of Us. It's all this overgrown, dark, abandoned stuff. There's nothing really humane in there, but there are all these infected monsters, kind of. And not many, in this case. Another person I experienced there is much like this bizarre haunted house. Frighteningly haunted house. Some kind of, I don't want to get into it. I understand how this sounds, but I figured I'd just get a little bit more transparent with some things because I think it might be helpful. For some, anyway. Yeah, the sonar thing. And had it not been for a number of folks that I've connected with now who seem to know exactly what I'm talking about, I mean uniquely so, I'm not sure I'd feel too comfortable talking about it. But this is the sort of thing that can help with detection. The problem with these devouring atmospheric overlays is they do just that. It feels like you are being devoured day and night, whilst uniquely ensnared in this custom-tailored psychobiological ensnarement. There's any number of things that they do to accomplish this on the, more, and it's difficult enough to discuss as it is, but there's more than enough clinical examples of how their behaviors operate and how they do what they do, and confusing you and everything else, and triangulating you with damn near everything. They'll triangulate you with the toaster if they can get away with it, as H.G. Tudor says. It's to make you feel insecure, constantly on edge, off balance. It's a violation of an innate bonding function and some. And what it becomes comprehensively over time, especially with everything else that they pepper into the mix, is beyond a violation. It's almost a macabre version of assassination. That's why coming back from it, I refer to it as the harrowing. And some. Not sure if that's helpful or not, but hope it might be. Apart from that, thanks for tuning in.